My name is Kristen Ellis. I'm 34 years old. 3 months ago, my boyfriend humiliated me in front of 300 people, convinced he was finally putting me in my place. What he didn't know was that he'd picked the one moment where I was done shrinking. This isn't a story about revenge. It's about what happens when someone confuses your patience for weakness and learns too late that they were wrong. I'm the founder and CEO of Ellis Logistics, a mid-sized supply chain company based in Denver. We manage transportation, warehousing, and regional distribution for manufacturing, retail, and construction companies across the western United States. 8 years ago, Ellis Logistics was just me, a $50,000 loan from my dad, and a battered Ford F-150 that rattled every time I went over 40 miles an hour. I worked 80-hour weeks without complaint because there was no one else to complain to. I slept on an air mattress in a converted storage unit that smelled like oil and dust, ate vending machine dinners, survived on burnt coffee and stubbornness, took phone calls at 3 in the morning from panicked clients whose shipments were stuck halfway across the state. When drivers called in sick, I drove the routes myself. When customers threatened to cancel, I showed up personally. I spent weekends cold calling potential clients from handwritten lists, getting hung up on more times than I can count. I didn't build this company with motivational posters or startup buzzwords. I built it with exhaustion. My first employee was Hannah, a warehouse associate who believed in me when we were operating out of a sketchy industrial park with one forklift that broke down every other week. She's now my operations manager and still laughs about the weekend we moved 40 pallets by hand because missing a deadline wasn't an option. That grind paid off. Today, we have 45 employees, a fleet of 30 vehicles, and contracts that allow me to live comfortably without pretending I'm something I'm not. I own my condo downtown, drive a reliable Audi, take vacations without checking my bank account first. That's success to me. I met Ethan, my now ex-boyfriend, 2 years ago at a business networking mixer. You know the kind. Name tags, forced smiles, everyone pretending they aren't calculating what the person across from them is worth. Ethan worked in business development for a major tech services company. Cloud infrastructure, cybersecurity, enterprise consulting, the kind of work that sounds impressive even when you don't fully understand it. He was handsome in a polished corporate way, tailored suit, perfect hair, confidence that came from always landing on his feet. We started talking about supply chain technology trends, and to his credit, he asked smart questions about logistics optimization, about scaling operations, about managing chaos when nothing goes according to plan. He laughed at my early days stories, told me I was inspiring, asked for my number. Our first date was at a trendy farm-to-table restaurant he suggested. Candlelight, expensive wine. He talked about ambition like it was oxygen. I liked that, or at least I thought I did. Things moved fast after that. Dinners between meetings, industry events, weekend games, Instagram photos captioned with power couple energy. His friends told me how lucky he was. Mine told me I looked happy. For the first 6 months, I believed we were building something together. Then the comments started. They were subtle at first. Logistics is stable, but tech is where real innovation happens. Moving things from point A to point B isn't exactly groundbreaking. I laughed it off, made jokes about how the world would stop functioning without logistics, told myself he didn't mean it that way. But words don't need intent to leave bruises. Around month 7, everything became a comparison. His coworkers' partners worked at Google, sold startups, closed 8-figure deals. Apparently, my profitable, growing company wasn't impressive anymore. It was safe. At parties, he'd introduce me as my girlfriend who runs a logistics company, always with that faint smile that suggested an apology was necessary. I corrected him every time. I don't run it, I built it. He never seemed to hear the difference. Social gatherings slowly turned into performance stages for his ambition. Every conversation became about his career, his industry, his future. When people asked about my work, he redirected within seconds. We can talk about shipping later, he'd say lightly. You should hear about this contract I'm closing. A close friend pulled me aside at a barbecue one night and asked quietly, Does Ethan ever ask about your day? I opened my mouth to answer and realized I didn't know. I defended him anyway, made excuses, told myself he was under pressure, that things would settle once he got the promotion he was chasing. But something uncomfortable had already taken root. It wasn't anger, it was smallness. I found myself choosing my words carefully, downplaying my wins, avoiding topics that might make him feel insecure. I didn't notice how much space I was giving up until it was already gone. I stayed because when things were good, they were really good. That's how you ignore warning signs. That's how you convince yourself love is supposed to feel like restraint. 3 months ago, Ethan's company announced their annual awards ceremony. Black tie, open bar, fancy hotel ballroom. The whole corporate spectacle designed to make people feel valued without actually paying them more. Ethan had been nominated for Rising Star, and from that moment on, it consumed him. Every conversation turned into strategy. Who would be there? Who would see him win? How it would position him for the VP role he'd been chasing for 2 years. He asked me to attend as his date. Of course, I said yes. What he didn't know, what made the entire situation quietly dangerous, was that Ellis Logistics had been negotiating a massive contract with his employer for months. A deal big enough to change everything. I hadn't told him yet. I thought I was being careful. I didn't realize I was standing at the edge of something irreversible. If I'm honest, the awards ceremony didn't start the collapse of my relationship with Ethan. It just exposed what had already been rotting underneath. In the weeks leading up to it, something in him shifted from ambition to obsession. Not the healthy kind, the kind that sharpens you, but the hollow kind that measures worth only by how loudly other people applaud. Every dinner turned into a rehearsal. Every conversation felt like practice for an audience I didn't exist in. Ethan talked about the Rising Star nomination the way some people talk about destiny. "This is it," he said one night, pacing our kitchen while I reheated leftovers. "This is the moment where leadership really sees me. After this, things change." I nodded, genuinely trying to be supportive. "You've worked hard for it. You deserve recognition." He stopped pacing and looked at me, almost evaluating the sentence. "Yeah, and visibility matters. Achievement is pointless if no one sees it." That was becoming a theme. He started correcting the way I described my own work when we were around his colleagues. "You should keep it simple," he told me once before a dinner party. "Just say you're in supply chain management." "I own the company," I replied evenly. "I know," he said, a little too quickly. "I just mean, some people don't really respect logistics as real business. You don't want them to misjudge you." The irony didn't hit him at all. Social events became exhausting. He worked every room like a politician. He'd grip my arm, steer me across conversations, introduce me quickly, then redirect attention back to himself. "This is Kristen," he'd say. "She runs a logistics company." Runs. Not built, not founded, runs. When people asked me questions, genuine ones, he cut in within seconds. "We can talk about shipping later," he'd laugh. "You should hear about this healthcare contract I'm closing." I started to feel like background noise in my own life. One night, after yet another event where I smiled until my face hurt, I sat in my car and stared at the steering wheel for a full minute before turning the engine on. I couldn't remember the last time Ethan had asked how my day went. Around that time, my friend Laura, who'd known me since before Ellis Logistics had a name, finally said what everyone else had been tiptoeing around. "Kristen," she said carefully over coffee, "I've watched you shrink around him." "I'm not shrinking," I snapped, defensive before I could stop myself. "You used to light up when you talked about your company," she continued. "Now you sound like you're apologizing for it." I didn't respond, because part of me knew she was right. The awards ceremony drew closer, and Ethan became increasingly controlling, though he'd never have called it that. He sent me articles about dress codes, suggested outfits, commented on my posture when I walked. "These people notice everything," he said. "Perception matters." The night before the event, while he adjusted my jacket collar like I was a child heading to prom, he said, "Just don't oversell yourself tomorrow." I froze. "What does that mean?" "Nothing bad," he replied quickly. "Just keep it humble. You know how corporate people can be. Logistics is service-based. Some of these executives are pretty snobby." I stared at him. "You realize you're talking about my entire career, right?" He sighed, exasperated. "Why are you being so sensitive? I'm trying to help you." That word, sensitive, landed harder than he realized. What he didn't know, what made every comment sharper, was that Ellis Logistics had finalized the contract with his company 2 weeks earlier. A 3-year deal, multi-million-dollar value, regional exclusivity. It was the biggest contract my company had ever negotiated. The announcement was scheduled for the awards ceremony. I hadn't told Ethan because I'd been asked not to. Procurement handled it. Executive-level confidentiality. Plus, some part of me wanted to see what he'd do when the truth finally arrived unfiltered. I didn't expect it to arrive the way it did. The day of the ceremony, Ethan barely looked at me unless it was to adjust something. Not too early, he said while checking his watch, and definitely not late. In the car, he rehearsed conversations aloud. What he'd say if he won, what he'd say if he didn't, who he needed to be seen talking to. He never asked how I felt. When we pulled up to the hotel, the Denver Marriott Tech Center, the scale of the event was impossible to ignore. Red carpet, photographer, ice sculptures that probably cost more than my first year of rent. Inside, the ballroom buzzed with energy. Executives in tailored suits, employees in formal wear, LED screens, flashing company logos like it was the Oscars of corporate tech. Ethan straightened immediately. This was his world. He dragged me from conversation to conversation, introducing himself, selling himself, positioning himself. I watched colleagues nod politely, impressed, calculating. A few people tried to engage me. "What kind of logistics do you handle?" one woman asked kindly. Before I could answer, Ethan cut in. "Oh, all kinds. But you should hear about the pipeline I've built this quarter." I smiled through it. Somewhere near the back of the room, my phone buzzed. A message from Hannah. "Boss, does he know you're getting recognized tonight?" I typed back under the table. "Nope, this should be interesting." The ceremony began. Awards crawled by at a glacial pace. Ethan's leg bounced under the table. His smile tightened with every category that passed. When his team won Best Project, he was thrilled for about 30 seconds. "It's a good start," he whispered, "but rising star is what matters." Then they announced it. Not his name. I felt the moment he snapped. When I reached for his hand, he pulled away sharply. "That award was mine," he muttered. "People like her don't even work as hard." I leaned closer. "You still did great. This doesn't define you." He turned to me, eyes hard, voice low and venomous. "You wouldn't understand," he said. "You just move boxes." The words landed clean, precise, final. Something inside me went quiet. And that's when the CEO took the stage again. "Before dinner," he announced, "we have one more very important recognition." Ethan wasn't listening, but I was, because I knew exactly what was coming. The room applauded politely as the CEO paused at the podium, waiting for the energy to settle. Ethan didn't clap. He was staring straight ahead, jaw locked, fingers gripping the edge of the table like it had personally betrayed him. I could still hear his words echoing in my head. "You just move boxes." It was strange how quickly something inside me went still. Not angry, not hurt, just clear, like a fog lifting. The CEO adjusted his microphone. "This year," he said, "Tech Core Solutions finalized the largest strategic partnership in our company's history." That got Ethan's attention. His head snapped up. "This partnership will fundamentally transform how we manage equipment distribution and supply chain operations across the entire Western region." I felt my phone buzz again. Another text from Hannah. "They're about to announce it." The CEO continued, voice carrying easily through the ballroom. "A 3-year agreement valued at $2.8 million annually, with expansion options beyond that." A ripple moved through the crowd. That kind of number always does something to people. Ethan leaned back in his chair now, interest returning. I could almost see the calculations running behind his eyes. Strategic partnership meant exposure, visibility, executives. This partnership represents exactly the kind of reliability, innovation, and operational excellence we value, the CEO said, and tonight we're proud to recognize the company behind it. Ethan smiled for the first time in 20 minutes. "Sullivan Logistics." No, that wasn't my company name anymore. The LED screens behind the stage lit up. "Ellis Logistics, founder and CEO, Kristen Ellis." The CEO smiled. "Represented here this evening by its founder and CEO, Kristen Ellis. Kristen, would you please join us on stage?" The applause was immediate, loud, genuine. For half a second, Ethan didn't react. Then he turned to me slowly, confusion sliding into disbelief. "What is this?" he whispered. "You didn't tell me." I stood, smoothing my dress, meeting his eyes calmly. "It's work," I said. "Just me moving boxes, remember?" His hand shot out and grabbed my wrist. His grip was tight, desperate. "Wait," he hissed. "You can't just— this affects me too." I gently removed his hand. "You'll be fine." The walk to the stage felt surreal, like time had stretched thin. I could feel hundreds of eyes on me, some curious, some shocked, some suddenly recalculating every conversation they'd ever had with me. The CEO shook my hand warmly. The plaque he handed me was heavier than it looked, engraved cleanly with my company's name. The screens displayed photos of our warehouses, our fleet, our team, my team. He spoke for a few minutes about the partnership, about our reliability, about how Ellis Logistics had beaten out national competitors, about our tracking systems, our turnaround times, our service record. Then he handed me the microphone. The room quieted. I took a breath, let it land. Thank you, I said evenly. This partnership means a great deal to my team and to me. Ellis Logistics was built from the ground up, and opportunities like this validate years of hard work by people who don't usually stand on stages like this. Polite applause. I paused, letting my eyes drift across the room. I saw Hannah near the back, smiling proudly. I saw executives leaning forward, attentive. And I saw Ethan. His face had drained of color. I've learned a lot building my company, I continued. I've learned that every industry, tech, logistics, manufacturing, plays a role in keeping the world functioning. None of it is small. None of it is beneath respect. The room was silent now. I've also learned something more personal, I said. Sometimes the people closest to you don't see your value until it's made public. A ripple of discomfort moved through the audience. I met the CEO's eyes briefly. And because integrity matters more to me than any single contract, I need to make something clear tonight. His smile faltered. After careful consideration, Ellis Logistics has decided not to move forward with this partnership. Gasps, murmurs, confusion. This decision has nothing to do with numbers or scope, I continued calmly. It has everything to do with alignment. We choose partners who respect our work, not just when it's profitable, but when it's invisible. The CEO's expression hardened. I appreciate TechCore's interest, I said, handing the microphone back, but we'll be pursuing opportunities that better align with our values. I nodded politely, stepped away from the podium, and walked off the stage. I didn't look back. Behind me, the ballroom erupted into confused whispers. Ahead of me, the exit doors waited. By the time I reached the valet desk, my hands were shaking, not from fear, but from adrenaline. I had just walked away from millions, and I'd never felt richer. I didn't get far before my phone started vibrating like it was possessed. I was halfway through the parking garage when Ethan's name lit up the screen. I declined the call. It rang again. Declined. By the time I slid into the driver's seat, my phone was already filling with messages. What the hell did you just do? You embarrassed me in front of my entire company. You had no right. Call me. Now. I didn't respond. I started the car and pulled out of the garage, my hands still shaking on the steering wheel. The adrenaline hit me all at once. What had I just done? I'd walked away from a multi-million-dollar contract. I'd humiliated a major corporation in front of hundreds of people. I'd detonated my relationship in a single sentence. And yet beneath the fear there was relief. Pure, unfiltered relief. I drove home in silence. By the time I got inside, I had over 30 missed calls, texts from numbers I didn't recognize, an email marked urgent from TechCore's CEO requesting an immediate meeting. I went to bed instead. The real explosion came the next morning. By 9 a.m., my phone had logged 47 missed calls. Ethan had apparently spent the night doing damage control, or revenge. He called mutual friends, coworkers, anyone who would listen. By noon, the story was circulating. According to Ethan, I'd sabotaged his career out of spite. I'd planned the whole thing because I was jealous he'd been nominated and I couldn't stand being less successful. He framed himself as the victim of my fragile ego. I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I posted receipts, screenshots of texts where he told me to downplay my little logistics company, messages where he dismissed my work as just moving boxes, comments he'd made over the past year that I'd quietly ignored. I didn't tag him, didn't name him, didn't rant. I posted one sentence. Every job has value. Every partner deserves respect. People recognized the messages within an hour. The narrative flipped fast. By that afternoon, TechCore's CEO called me directly. Ms. Ellis, he said, voice tight, I owe you an apology. We had no idea there was a personal relationship involved. If we had known... My decision stands, I replied calmly. I can't partner with a company where disrespect toward vendors is tolerated. There was a pause. Ethan is facing consequences, he said carefully. Significant ones. That's between you and him, I said. My responsibility is my company. Within a week, Ethan was demoted. His promotion evaporated. Colleagues came forward saying they'd heard him belittle my work publicly, using me as a punchline. The reputation he'd built on perception collapsed under proof. TechCore tried again. Offered incentives, guarantees, even termination. I still declined. Some bridges don't need rebuilding. Within a month, Ellis Logistics landed 2 new clients, one larger than the TechCore deal. Turns out, companies respect boundaries. Ethan tried to reach me through friends. He was sorry. He was struggling. He needed closure. I never responded. Because closure isn't owed to people who knew exactly what they were doing. 3 months later, life is good. The company is growing. Team morale is high. Hannah was promoted. We're opening our Nevada facility. And I'm dating someone new. A man who listens, who asks about my day, who thinks what I do matters because I do. Funny how different everything feels when you stop trying to be enough for someone who never intended to see you.